Now here's your host, Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage.
Ooh, yeah!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports and Metal Podcast. We are your hosts. This is Aaron Savage. With me, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Jason Voorhees. What's going on, Jay?
What's up, buddy?
Not much, man. How you been?
How was your vacation?
It was good. I'm glad to be back. How about? I went to the Poconos. We did some snow tubing, snowboarding. It was like a return to winter. Had been a little warm in the area, and then we're back to winter weather. But it's supposed to warm up this weekend, so it was good though. Vacation always goes too quick, you know.
Yeah, it's always over before it started.
Exactly. I'm glad to be back, brother. Anyway, before we get started, I want to give thanks to our number one sponsor, La Terrain Watches. La Terrain makes the best handcrafted watches on the market. Artisan watches, beautiful watches. They make a great gift. They have men's and women's watches. You use our promo code SNM at checkout. You'll get 10% off your purchase. Visit their website, laterrain.com. That's LA-TOURAINE.com. Again, use our promo code SNM. You're going to get 10% off at checkout. So make sure you check out La Terrain. Anyway, brother, why don't we get started? The biggest news of the week, locked out. MLB couldn't come to an agreement with the Players Association by the 5 p.m. deadline that had been extended to Tuesday. So shocking, but I guess not shocking. I really thought they were going to get a deal done. Obviously, now we're in a situation where they've had to cancel regular season games, which sucks. I mean, honestly, dude, for me, it's such a gut punch, Jay. It's a gut punch. You know, baseball is my personal favorite sport. And this time of year, I always get super excited. For me, like, I love football season, right? And I love my favorite weekends in football are like wild card weekend and then the following weekend. Once you get to championship weekend, unless you have a vested interest in the teams, for me anyway, it just loses its luster a little bit because you don't have that constant football. Like, there's no greater feeling than having that entire Sunday where you're watching tons of games, right? And then wild card weekend's like awesome because you have the 2 games Saturday, the 2 games Sunday. Once you don't have the 2 games Saturday and 2 games Sunday in the playoffs anymore, it starts going downhill for me because it just becomes that cold winter doldrum of no sports. I'm not huge on hockey and basketball, as you know, and I look forward to baseball. So when the Super Bowl's there, it's like, for me, that's, if I don't have a vested interest, it's spring training and right around the corner, ready to rock. And obviously 2 out of 3 years, disappointment, no spring training as of yet. Now they've canceled the first 2 regular season series. Dude, 2020, Jay, right when the pandemic hit, I won't ever forget. Like, last minute, I got opening day tickets. It was Pete, and then I got tickets for the next day. It was Pete Alonso bobblehead day. Called my son Gavin up. Dude, we got tickets. And, like, within 3 days of me buying the tickets, canceled because of COVID. You know, so we've been through so much as fans. We went through that, and then all the shit we went through. We talked about it on this podcast ad nauseum. The players and owners going back and forth in 2020, trying to come to an agreement how the players were going to be paid in a shortened season. It went on for so long that the season ended up being 60 games, which was an absolute joke, which we've talked about 1,000 times. Then last year, we finally got a full season, but it wasn't normal. You know, there were still masks and still COVID lists and this and that. Finally, we were ready for a normal season, and then this. The fans don't need it anymore, Jay. We've been through too much. It's so disappointing. I can't believe they didn't come to an agreement. I mean, there's not much more to say, dude. It's billionaires fighting millionaires. So even if the players have valid points in certain circumstances, it doesn't make it any easier to swallow this pill. You know, Jay?
I mean, on our last show, you had pretty much 2 epic rants. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that since then. But Aaron kind of went off, and it's like, I kind of want to do that, but it's like almost to the point where I'm just so disgusted I can only laugh about it because it to me it's absolute joke anymore. The way that this league is treating the situation, because I don't understand. Like you said, yes, it's millionaires fighting billionaires, and I get it that at the end of the day the owners are the billionaires and they are at most, at fault. But to me, like, I don't understand how you can look at this in any other way and believe that this is going to be a good thing for the league. When you already have Major League Soccer pretty much on the precipice, if I'm saying the word
Precipice.
right,
Precipice.
of overtaking baseball as
That's not true. I mean, let's not hyperbole here. That's not true. But yeah, but that leads me to something where we're going with this. Is this the death of baseball?
I mean, you say it's not true, but Aaron, honestly, like kids aren't as enthusiastic about baseball. You could tell just by the amount of people that play Little League baseball. It's not near.
No, you make a very valid point, which I was going to get to. I'm just saying I don't think MLS is going to get. You're talking about stadiums that fill 10,000 people versus MLB stadiums that fill 50,000 people, and MLB is a billions and billions of dollar industry in this country. So yes, there are major concerns, and we were going to get to that. Obviously, so let's do it before we. I think that was hyperbole, but I get your point. You're onto something here. My point is this, and you're on the same page as me. Is this the death of baseball? Do I think it is? No, but it's definitely alarming, dude. It's alarming because it's not about just MLS and hockey and basketball and the NFL. It's about 1,000 other things that all these sports are competing with. We live in an era where there's a million distractions. People don't need to watch sports. The NFL went through it to a lesser extent when everybody got pissed off, with the kneeling at the national anthem and this and that divided the country. Granted, like I said, to a lesser extent because it wasn't a lockout or a strike. But the NFL went through that. People were like, I don't want to watch the NFL. And they don't need to because there's Netflix, there's Prime Video, Hulu. There's so many iPhones, apps. Nobody's paying attention. Everybody's attention span has been reduced to next to nothing. Sitting through any kind of sporting event that takes 2-3 hours is not something most Americans are willing to do anymore. It's not like you go back, you watch old footage of Major League Baseball, in the old grainy black and white footage from the early 1900s, right? And you see guys, there was no night games then because there was no lights. You see all these people wearing fedora hats and suits, watching ball games. And these were day games. And you think to yourself, how did they have the time to do it, right? How did they have the time to do this? You see you watch all old grainy footage, day baseball, packed ballparks. Everybody's got like a rolled up newspaper, a fedora hat, and a suit. Businessmen. How did they have the time? That's all you need to do for an example of the difference of the past to today. People don't have that kind of time. They have a million distractions, and that's been something that's been increasing for the last 2 decades, right? It's more than ever now, though. More than ever. Kids today have the attention span of a squirrel, Jay. Their whole lives are apps, TikTok videos that are 30 seconds long, Vines that are 10 seconds long. They're not going to sit through 3-hour baseball games, right? And it's something that's, like I said, has built up to this. Let's go back 20 years, 30 years when SportsCenter was new, right? SportsCenter was the beginning of the lack of attention span for sports fans because no longer did a sports fan need to sit and watch a game. They had something that would just give them highlights all day, right? Everything is about highlights now. And that's all sports, let's be honest. How many people sit through an NFL game now? They don't. They watch Red Zone. Red Zone is another example of the lack of attention span. You might be the exception, Jay, and I know you're always working, and you're not home a lot on a Sunday, so you might be the exception. But I can tell you from firsthand truth, as a Miami Dolphins fan and living in New Jersey, I don't have the NFL ticket. I watch whatever Dolphins games are on when they're in my local market, whether it's Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, or a game against the Giants or Jets, or the random other game that might be on channels too, right? But beyond that, I'm watching Red Zone because I'm getting my Dolphins highlights and I'm watching every other game. And I know most people I talk to watch Red Zone on a Sunday. They don't sit through a 3-hour NFL game. So it's all sports. Then you get back to baseball, which is a slow sport by today's standards. And it's a real problem that MLB is facing. You're making where there's no baseball, the players aren't on the field, and everybody's distracted to begin with. People can easily forget about baseball and not give a shit outside of the most diehard fans. So I don't think this is about what you said, MLS soccer taking over baseball, because let's be honest, most people in this country aren't huge soccer fans. And my son played soccer for years. I actually enjoy watching it now. But that's not going to happen. It's in Europe, maybe. Yeah, but not here. The big joke. What's the joke about soccer we've always heard? If I wanted to watch guys run around for 2 hours and not score, I'd watch my friends at the bar. because that's what soccer is. It's 2 hours of not scoring. It's 1-0. That's not what Americans are into. It's not about MLS overtaking baseball. It's about just baseball losing its fans, period. It doesn't matter the other sports. It's about the other distractions across the board. And baseball's in a position, in a very unique position, where they're already trying to reinvent the game to appeal to the younger generation, the younger fans. And here we are. No, you can't appeal to a younger generation when you don't even have the players on the field. Right?
Well, yeah. But the last time that baseball faced something of this drastic of a situation was obviously 1994.
Yep.
And we know what all happened then. So baseball was at the same people had the same questions back then, and that was 94, 20 some years ago, right? Well, 30 some years ago now. So it makes you wonder that the steroid era is basically what saved baseball. So it makes me wonder if we continue down this path, say the season is only 60 games, or say it is canceled. Worst case scenario, they don't play.
That's possible now.
So my question is, what could it take at this point in time in 2022 to actually resurrect baseball? Because I got to be honest, dude, I will be so pissed off. Like I'm not saying I'll never go to a Phillies game again if they do cancel the season, because I can't say that and actually believe it, because I know myself. I know who I am, and I know, 3 years from now, it's summer. Yeah. I get the vibe, and I want to go. I'm going to go. But what I can say is I will not buy merchandise. I'm not going to spend money on a league that's basically giving us this. Pretty much, that's what they're saying to everybody, because the fans, the bottom line if it weren't for fans, we wouldn't have baseball. You wouldn't have sports leagues.
Yeah. And let's back up to the question that you asked, because it's a great question, Jason. And it's something that I've thought about. You asked the question, what saved baseball in 94 after the strike? And then you answered that question. The steroid era. The 1998 home run chase between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. And maybe if we step back a little bit before that, you'd have to say the Cal Ripken streak. I think the first thing that really pulled baseball out of the doldrums, wasn't that 95 Cal Ripken? When he broke Lou Gehrig's streak. I think that was the first thing, right? So you had these two cataclysmic events that brought baseball back from the proverbial dead, right? Huge events. You could argue 1 in 100-year events. The Cal Ripken breaking the Lou Gehrig streak, because that is a 1 in 100-year, and maybe never will happen again. Most likely will never happen again, especially with modern-day sports contracts where players are babied so teams can protect their investments because, God forbid, a player gets hurt, right? You had that and this ridiculous home run chase between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, which resulted in McGwire hitting 70 home runs, and Sosa, I think, finished with 66. So you had two guys hit between 66 and 70 home runs after 100 years where no one had hit, or 120 years where no one had hit more than 61, and only two had hit 60, Maris and Ruth. So things that were like impossible happened to bring the game back. What are the chances of anything like that happening again to bring baseball back? That's the question that you asked that I think is so relevant. What did it take then to bring the sport back? And what are the chances of something like that happening again? It seems like an impossibility. And going back to my further points, in 1994, things weren't like they are today. Dude, I think I first heard of America Online around 1994, right? A friend of mine had it. And I was like, what the heck's that? And he's like, oh, it's this thing called the internet. It's this thing called the internet. And it was like dial up. How far have we come? It took a half hour to get logged into the internet in 1994. Now you have a internet. Everything that you touch is internet now. And it's instantaneous. People are more distracted now. People are a lot more distracted. It's going to take a lot more to get baseball back if they continue with this. And like you said, I mean, is it going to be a 60-game season? Can the season be canceled? 2 weeks ago, I would have said, no way, that's impossible. But now it seems like realistic, because they just went through all this negotiating the last 10, 11 days, and they're just no closer to an agreement than they were, and they're playing hardball with each other. So when they reconvene sometime next week, what makes you think it's going to be any different? And it's just there's a possibility that they just get more and more pissed off and stand their ground, and then okay, now it's pushed back to May 1st, right? Then that deadline inches closer and closer. Now they push it back to June 1st. You could conceivably see a point where they have to cancel the season. And that's a scary thought. Scary thought.
It's aggravating. It's frustrating because,
Yeah.
like you said, especially for someone like you, like obviously being a Mets fan, like obviously we know they made some big signings like right before the lockout. And now you don't even know if you're going to get to see those guys play. Like that's what's crazy about this. And then I guess my other question is what's going to happen when they finally do come to an agreement? What if it is not until the end of May? Is there going to be like a 1 week free agency frenzy where everyone gets signed? Or
well, that probably would happen. Yeah, it's crazy. You have all these free. Yeah, it's not like you make a great point. It's not like everybody can just report to spring training because they haven't even been signed. That's something I hadn't even thought of.
So are you going to have like teams playing with players that are still free agents, not even on the team yet? Then they're going to have to come in. Maybe some of them, I'm not saying they'll be out of shape because usually these athletes do stay in shape. But then they're going to report to the team. There's going to be no chemistry. Like to me, everything about this season's already ruined in my mind because you're not having, the full.
I don't know if I'd go again. That might be hyperbole. I mean, if they came to an agreement this week, it would still stink, but we're going to have a season. But the more it goes, it gets more to the craziness of and the possibility of not. We have a commenter here from Dan Green, a viewer of the show. He's talking about 4-hour games, no strategy, no base stealing, etc. A dying sport killing itself. And those are all great points too, because everything I mentioned and Jay mentioned, that's something we didn't get to. Baseball is a sport that's trying to appeal to the younger audience, but at the same time, they're doing everything to not appeal to the younger audience. The way to appeal to a younger audience is to speed the game up, right? To make it more exciting. That means putting the ball in play. Like you could watch a game even from 20 years ago and contact was constant. Guys, like every time the pitcher threw the ball, a guy would make contact for the most part, unless you had Randy Johnson or Pedro Martinez on the mound. Your average pitcher might have thrown 220 innings and only had 120 strikeouts. So guys were making contact, which means the game was moving at a faster pace. The fielders were on their toes. You had action on the base pass. Guys were stealing. Now you have a game where all that's valued is the walk and the home run, right? So, and strikeouts are not devalued anymore because they think, hey, strikeouts don't affect you negatively, and we're all about on-base percentage and home runs. So you're basically watching the pitcher and the catcher play catch in some cases for 3.5 hours. Kids don't want to watch that. And then you add replay, which takes 20 minutes. And you had all these stupid rules that are only elongating the game. You're talking about speeding the game up, but you're doing everything to make it longer. I can go on and on. I've done it before. I'll spare you. I will spare you. Jay, I know we were going to get to NFL next, but since we're talking about the internet, I'm going to jump into this a little bit. You know why? Because I don't know if you've had a chance to check it out on Hulu, but the Pam and Tommy, the limited series, it's about obviously Pam Anderson and Tommy Lee's sex tape that leaked back in the 90s. And the reason I said let's jump into this is because we were just talking about, the 94 lockout and how at that time the internet was in its infancy and you had dial-up and nobody knew what the internet was. It was a new thing. Pam and Tommy is like basically about, as much as it's about the sex tape, it's about like the beginning of the internet and where we are now, right? It started out as a sex tape that was stolen out of Tommy Lee's safe from a disgruntled worker that he didn't pay. And it was the first thing that like went super viral on the internet, the sex tape. So I don't know have you had a chance to check it out yet, Jay? Pam and Tommy?
I haven't had a chance yet, but I'm definitely going to be,
I tell you this, it's for entertainment value. It's worth watching. Just because we're fans of Tommy Lee and Pam Anderson, it's like it's definitely entertaining. Seth Rogen plays the guy that robbed him. I forget his name. So it's got some star power to it. But I will tell you this, man. It really, to me, it makes Tommy Lee look like the biggest douchebag. Rude, obnoxious, treats the guys that worked at his house like shit. He's running around in his freaking underwear all day. I don't know if you saw John Corabi was recently interviewed somewhere, and he said it's total bullshit. He said, I never saw Tommy Lee around that time period running around his house in his underwear. Dude, and Pam and Tommy, it's like he never has clothes on, dude. He's running around in his underwear the whole time.
So Karabi's actually basically saying that it's the whole story.
And Pam Anderson and Tommy Lee have nothing to do with it. And it's funny, I just recently saw Pam has a Netflix biopic coming out about her life, and she has nothing to do with the Pam and Tommy show. Anyway, dude, it's definitely exaggerated for comedic and entertainment value. But I just figured I'd touch on that real quick. Why don't we get to the NFL, Jay? Amari Cooper. The rumors are that the Cowboys are going to release him. I saw Jarvis Landry's probably going to be released by the Browns. So the wide receiver pool gets a lot deeper, man.
Yeah,
What's
it's
that?
crazy. No, I said it just gets a lot bigger, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like my first thought when it came to mind when I saw that, obviously you talk about we're living in the era of the instant news and instant gratification. Obviously, that notification popped up on my phone, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Like Amari Cooper's being cut. Like, and I guess my first thought was like, "What is Dallas thinking?" But then again, like I guess maybe they're in cap trouble. So
yeah, I mean,
apparently, it will save him 16. It'll save the Cowboys $16 million in cap space. That's a pretty big amount of money.
yeah, and I saw Jarvis Landry would save, I think, the Browns 20 or 22 million in cap space, even more. I'll be honest, man. As a Dolphins fan, I would just like for sentimental value to see Landry back in Miami and team him up with Jalen Waddle, dude, and like have if Jarvis Landry would not demand top wide receiver one money, which he was getting in Cleveland. If he would take that and come to Miami, I'd love to see him in cahoots. That way you could spread the field with Waddle more and have Landry be your slot guy where he's a beast. I would love to see that, dude, as a Dolphins fan.
I mean, I like Jarvis Landry. I think you talk about somebody that's probably one of the most underrated guys in the NFL as far as at his position. I mean, what he did early in his career, I don't think was ever talked enough. I mean, obviously he put up some pretty serious numbers, and I didn't ever really hear Jarvis Landry.
Well, dude,
I mean,
like
maybe
his
you
first,
did. You're a
he set the
Dolphins
rookie.
fan, but
He set the rookie receptions record, and then I think through 3 seasons he had the most receptions ever. So he was just a great slot guy in Miami, dude. I would just, as a Dolphin fan, I just think it would be exciting to see him back. That's all.
Yeah, and then I saw a report today too that I guess you saw it. Washington offered multiple first-round picks to Seattle for Russell Wilson.
I did see that, and then I saw Seattle said Russell Wilson's not going anywhere. Did I see
Seattle
that somewhere?
keeps saying that, which is crazy, but yet you keep hearing Russell Wilson's name. Like obviously, people want Russell Wilson.
Oh yeah,
which is crazy because that kind of brings up the talk. Like I heard quite a few folks saying that Russell Wilson was washed up, which in my opinion is ridiculous to say. Like I get that he had a down year, but to say somebody's washed up that's probably done more with less than any quarterback in the NFL is crazy to me. I know
I 100% agree. 100% agree. And what really quick before we move on, while we're talking about quarterbacks, I also saw the Dolphins officially stated that they're out on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. They're rolling with Tua. He's their guy. And personally, I'm excited about that. I don't want any part of Deshaun Watson. Anyway, dude, big story this week. Marilyn Manson has filed a lawsuit against Evan Rachel Wood. His accuser, Evan Rachel Wood, if you remember, came out last year, identified Marilyn Manson as her abuser. Said he sexually abused her, tortured her, this and that. And Marilyn Manson has now filed a lawsuit stating that her claims are all lies and that her and her friend actually forged letters from a fake FBI agent and then got some other woman involved that read these fake letters from this FBI agent, and that she came after Manson and brought it public, and that they're saying Evan Rachel Wood and her friend, what is her friend? I'm trying to remember her name. Something Gore. Oh, Ilma Gore. They're saying Evan Rachel Wood and Ilma Gore. So here's what it says. They conspired to paint Manson as a rapist and an abuser. The lawsuit claims Wood and Gore impersonated an FBI agent to give the appearance that a federal investigation into Warner's alleged crimes was ongoing, said the report from Rolling Stone magazine. They allegedly sent letters from this agent to a woman who would later make public allegations against Warner to suggest that they were in danger. Warner also claims that Wood and Gore provided checklists and scripts to prospective accusers listing the specific alleged acts of abuse that they should claim against Warner. Brian Warner being Marilyn Manson, obviously. And that they made false statements to these women, including the defamatory claim that Warner filmed the sexual assault of a minor. The suit also claims that Gore attempted to get into Manson's personal computer. This detailed complaint has been filed to stop a campaign of malicious and unjustified attacks on Brian Warner, said Manson's lawyer Howard King. Years after the end of Evan Rachel Wood's long-term relationship with Warner, she and her girlfriend Ilma Gore recruited numerous women and convinced them to make false allegations against him. Wow. And this is all right before HBO's got a documentary coming out on Evan Rachel Wood called Phoenix Rising, which depicts her story of abuse at the hands of Marilyn Manson. So is Marilyn Manson going to file a suit against HBO and the director of that film? I guess time will tell. As of now, he said no. He said that the director and HBO are victims of her lies. So a lot going on with Manson, dude. I don't know where you stand on this.
I mean, listen, Marilyn Manson to me is just a weird cat. I mean, he's always been. He's just a strange dude. I don't know what to believe, because the problem with these things is that when you have these high profile cases, a lot of times, realistically, obviously they had a relationship. So a lot of times when people have relationships, we don't know exactly what happened. But to me, what I kind of find a little bit odd is the fact that she is not the only accuser. I mean, there's been how many people that have come forward?
Well, that's what's interesting about this. That's what. Hold on, Jay. Sorry, but that's what's interesting about this. Like when you first hear it and you hear about all these accusers, you think there's something to it, right? I'm not saying there's not, because look, usually when you have multiple accusers, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? But now it's like he's got this lawsuit saying, and that they have proof that Evan Rachel Wood and her girlfriend Ilma Gore faked these letters from this imaginary FBI agent, and that they coaxed and scripted the other accusers of what to say to accuse Manson. So, wow, there's a lot going on here, man. I guess time will tell. I mean, like you said, Marilyn Manson's a weird dude. There's the whole argument Marilyn Manson, the character, is not Brian Warner, the person, and that people sometimes blur the lines, and it makes it easier to jump down his throat and accuse him.
I mean, let's face it. Eminem used him in one of his most famous songs.
And now Manson's actually going with Kanye West, and he's on his album, and he's been going to church ceremonies, services with Kanye. So weird.
Well, no, what I'm getting at is that you're right. He's an easy target because, first of all, he's always been socially awkward. Like, you could tell he is. He said it in his book. I mean, I don't know if obviously you read it.
I did years ago. Read the book.
Look, the book is
Neil
insane,
Strauss wrote it.
but the book was actually very well written. Like, you could tell the guy's smart. Marilyn Manson's not an idiot. Like, you don't get to where he is being an idiot. He's definitely smart. I mean, if you read his story, I watched quite a few there's like 3 really good documentaries on Marilyn Manson. One that actually does kind of a full length up until like recently, not probably the past 10 years, but basically how he started as Brian Warner, and then when he moved from Cleveland, from Ohio to Florida, and then how he went and he was a writer, obviously, for I believe the place was called the Fifth Parallel or something like that. But basically, he was a writer, and he basically created his own character before it even became. So in essence, he basically wrote the script before he actually, completed the script. Being that Marilyn Manson, the character, grew from an idea. He wasn't even a musician. The guy didn't even have any musical talent.
Oh, yeah.
It just shows you like that. I mean, if you want to talk about a story that shows that somebody can do anything they put their heart to, I mean, I know he's crazy. We look at him in that light as far as like, it's easy to paint that picture of him being a weirdo, but
he's definitely a weirdo.
But what he's accomplished is insane. I mean, think about it. Would you think somebody like that could accomplish what he did?
No, I mean, but like I said, I don't want to get too far here and like start like praising the guy when we don't know what's going on.
I'm not praising him.
I agree.
I guess what I'm getting at is that for all the grief that he does get, you have to at least admit that he has an artistic talent. I mean,
there's no question.
There's a lot of art. I know he's into like that, that there's an alcohol called synth or something that he's very big on, that he drinks. It's like a wine, but it's kind of like, real, I don't know. It's like overseas or something. Like it's very like, he's always into that. Like
he's into weird shit,
hip stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's like hipster stuff. Yeah. I got you. Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, dude, the Marilyn Manson character is kind of modeled after the Alice Cooper character, but much more extreme. But the bottom line is, yes, it's easier to blur the lines between the character and the man, but Evan Rachel Wood says that the character is the man. But I guess time will tell. Well, time will tell.
Forget. I mean, obviously, my favorite Marilyn Manson record. I'm sure you know which one.
Well, you like Antichrist Superstar. I've always been partial to Mechanical Animals.
Well, no, that Mechanical Animals is my favorite Marilyn
me
Manson
too.
album.
Yep.
And for many reasons, because I think it brought out a different side of Marilyn Manson that I never knew existed. At the time, it was, obviously Antichrist Superstar came out, and it was still like that goth metal industrial type style. And then when he brought out Mechanical Animals, there was just a ton of like glam and
it was totally like David Bowie 70s glam.
Exactly, which I never knew.
Yeah, and I loved it. I did. I love that record. I think it's a phenomenal record.
But I remember when that record came out, and the cover when he comes out with like obviously the synthetic boobs and like basically like a female.
Well, he's an alien, Omega. Well, that's another thing about that record. It was Omega and the whatever. I can't remember the band's name. That was totally modeled off of David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, and the Spiders from Mars. I can't remember the band on Mechanical Animals, the fictional band, but that was totally like modeled after that. Omega was the rock star from space, and he had his band, just like Ziggy Stardust was the rock star from space and has his band. So Mechanical Animals was a total ode to Bowie, total in every way, but it was an absolute artistic masterpiece. Agreed.
Definitely 100%. My favorite record, and like
me
I said,
too.
every time I think of Marilyn Manson, I always think of that picture for like that CD cover. Always comes to my mind as soon as I hear Marilyn Manson. And even that era of that tour, when he was like, I remember watching that tour because that was when John 5 actually just came to the band.
Yep.
And obviously John 5 is one of my favorite guitarists. So I always just think of that era when I think of Marilyn Manson.
Absolutely, brother. While we're talking about music, why don't we get to the picks of the week? Why don't you go first this week, Jay? Mix it up.
Well, mine's going to be short and sweet. So you know me. I obviously my style. We always talk about it. I'm like, obviously Megadeth's my favorite band. I'm usually like a thrash. That's my favorite style of music. But I've lately, since I told you I've gotten hooked on different, obviously I got XM radio now, and I'm just into just listening to new music and just trying to be more open-minded in what I listen to. And obviously, I do these searches on Amazon where I set, I look up new release and I'll put metal. And so, a whole list of albums comes up and I just put the first one on and I play it. So the album that I checked out this past week was called The Death of Peace of Mind. And it's from a band called Bad Omens. So I've heard of Bad Omens. I've heard the name, but I never obviously didn't know anything really about them. So I kind of, went back and I kind of did some research. They're basically based out of Richmond, Virginia. They've only been around since 2015, and this is basically their third album. Now, they're classified as a metalcore band. So when you hear metalcore, you think of that like sometimes having the clean vocals and then other times having the screaming. So I was expecting like a kind of a variation of that. But when I put on this album, I was pleasantly surprised. Like basically, they kind of went to a new style where it's almost like they have like some industrial in there, but there's like a lot of like deep bass and drum cuts. And it's like almost like, I don't want to say club music, but it has like that vibe. And it was every song on the album is pretty much like an offshoot of the song from the previous song. So for instance, my favorite song, Like a Villain, on the album, it kind of reminds me, you heard of like Breaking Benjamin?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like that style where it kind of has a slow start and then gets heavy. But like, I'm going to just give you a sample of what I'm talking about, of the different style. Like you would never think this is metalcore. So this is a song called What It Cost. I don't know if you can hear it.
I hear it.
got that zone out vibe.
Yeah, I like it, man. I like it.
So anyway, the album is a lot of that, but there's also some parts where it does get heavier and it has the screaming vocals. But the guy's voice kind of, dude, it reminds me of like a Justin Timberlake in a metal band. Like his voice is not like a metal voice. It's like really, really good. Like he hits some super high notes. So that's my pick of the week. It's called The Death of Peace of Mind. It's by the band Bad Omens. Check it out.
I'm going to definitely check it out.
Surprised.
Awesome. Anyway, my pick of the week is an oldie but goodie with a new record. The Scorpions, bro. They just released their new record last week on February 24th. The new album is called Rock Believer. It's their first album in a few years. First album with new drummer Mickey D of Motorhead fame. He replaced Rich Kotak, or whatever, James Kotak, who was dismissed in 2016 for too much alcohol, being drunk, blah, blah, blah. You might remember he's married or was married to Athena Lee, Tommy Lee's sister. So it's the first time with Mickey D, Rock Believer. And dude, Klaus, these guys are 73 years old, man. And Klaus still has the voice. He still has the voice. It's the same writing team. Some of the album actually reminds me of like a throwback to like the Blackout era Scorpions. I mean, dude, Rock Believer is an awesome song. Seventh Son is an awesome song. I like Shining of Your Soul. Peacemaker was the first single that was released. Anyway, dude, if you like Scorpions, you're definitely going to want to check this record out. It sounds like Scorpions. It's not a band that's like 73 and like, oh, why are they still doing it? No, you wouldn't believe they're 73. It's like they're taking the same whatever that Sammy Hagar's taking, because Sammy sounds great too for his age. So definitely check out the new Scorpions record. It's called Rock Believer. It just came out last week. I highly recommend it. And, Mickey D's an animal on the drums. So having him there is definitely a bonus. So that's my pick of the week, brother.
Yeah, I honestly, I heard it myself, and I was thinking about doing it as my pick of the week. I'm kind of glad that we didn't have the same pick of the week. I guess it would actually happen, I think, only one other time where we had the same pick of the week ever in the history of sports and metal. But, yeah, I'm a Scorpions guy. I always loved, obviously. The funny thing is my favorite Scorpion song was probably, I'm trying to think of the album that it came off of. The one about the wall.
Oh, you're talking about Wind of Change.
Wind of Change was and I know that
was nerdy. Definitely that was their most popular.
I know album. That's nerdy, but that's my favorite.
That's definitely a little nerdy.
Scorpion song.
That was on the I couldn't remember the name of the record. Crazy World. Yeah, that was their most poppy album. I mean, it was solid. But
that's my favorite.
For me, when I think of Scorpions, I go back to like the great era, Blackout, Love Drive. That's the great shit. I mean, this album has some throwback to that. It's definitely a very good Scorpions album. And it's got a weird album cover, which is kind of a throwback to the old ones too. Although not as controversial and sexual, but definitely weird. The girl's got like some thing pulled over her face and you see a scorpion on her tongue. Speaking of funny album covers, I don't know if you saw Don Jameson. He did a reenactment of the Love Drive cover. I saw it. He had it on Facebook. I don't know if you remember the Love Drive cover. It has the guy and he has like the gum and it's stretched over the girl's exposed boob and it's like the gum is stretching. Well, Don Jameson photoshopped his head onto the album cover. It's pretty funny. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Your boy Don Jameson.
I love Don. But yeah, Scorpions are still firing on all cylinders, brother. Still.
Absolutely.
Anyway, brother, it's been a great show as always. We hope everybody out there enjoyed it. As always, don't forget to check out our sponsor, La Terrain Watches. It's la-touraine.com. You go to their website, check out their watches, handcrafted, men's, women's, beautiful stuff at a great price point. You're not going to break the bank. And it's going to be even better when you use our promo code S&M. That's the letters S&M as in sports and metal. You will save an additional 10% off their already great prices. So you definitely want to check out La Terrain. Jay, as always, it's been great. Everybody out there, again, hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget, check out our website, www.sportsandmetal.com. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, at Sports and Metal, Instagram, at Sports and Metal. And as always, rock on.
Peace out.
And that's our show. Tune in next time for more Sports and Metal with Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage. Woo, yeah! Got something to say? Hit us up at sportsandmetal0423 at yahoo.com or on Twitter at sportsandmetal.